Kill Complacency, a podcast that inspires growth and intentionality and helps you overcome your greatest obstacles.
So my guest today is Chad Aleo. I met Chad actually about a month ago in Austin. He has a book called High Ticket Sales. I didn't know that at the time. I just knew that I wanted to write a book. And he was there to coach me. And after reading his book this week, I realized that his coaching was just conversational. And we had a great conversation. I wanted Chad right away. We hit it off. And I just wanted to get Chad on here because I feel like he embraces this kill complacency. So Chad, could you tell us a little bit about your story, your backstory? I know in reading your book, you thought you'd be a doctor and then realized that wasn't for you.
Oh yeah. You caught me. Well, first of all, thanks for letting me be on here. I mean, just to blast the mentality of this kill complacency is just something that I feel like every day I'm struggling with. Not a way where it's a challenge, but it's you're always overcoming it, right?
Sure.
And so from that standpoint, but from a little bit about me and my background, currently right now, I run a business called High Ticket Sales Academy. We're on pace to do over $1 million in revenue just this year, which is really exciting. But how did I get here? And I actually started my journey in business and dealing with making the choice between the blue pill and the red pill of being complacent or not, right? By starting as a college student, I wanted to be a doctor, kind of like you mentioned, Marty, you read my book. And I was like, man, I want to be a doctor. There's no doubts how you make great money. And then I realized, man, I don't want to go to school for 10 more years. There's no way. I got weeded out of the biology class. And so I switched to business. I get recruited to do this crazy internship with this company called Southwestern Advantage. And they asked me to come sell books, educational textbooks, door to door. And it was 100% commission. I had to live in a state I'd never been in my life. Okay. And I worked 80 hours a week, knocking on doors. I did that for 3 summers. And that's really was the beginning of my journey. Obviously there's a much between that stuff that got me to where I am today from that standpoint. So I started as a pesky door-to-door salesman, the guy that we all told to get off our property. I'm not interested. I was that guy.
Chad, how did you get that job? Was it just an interview or did they pick you out somehow?
Well, they made it feel like it was an interview, but it was actually, it was the recruiting, what we trained on. And so I did this for about 3 summers. In my second year, I became like a recruiter, but I still sold every summer. And what we would do is we would go to campuses with approval from campuses and we would actually do presentations at the end of in a classroom, like a business school. And we would present to the entire college group of that class and tell them about, an internship that we have where you can learn about sales skills, marketing, how to run a business. We wouldn't tell them it's door to door because obviously they'd be like, no way, it's so, but we would pass out a survey. If you're interested, someone will contact you. And so I filled out a survey and, whatever, I get contacted, get invited to this internship interview. I remember calling my parents oh, I got an opportunity to do summer internship. They're like, that's great. And so I go to this meeting and the guy was just so good. His name's Maurice. He's one of my best friends now, the guy that recruited me. And man, oh man, just so good at explaining everything. It was like a 3-step interview process. And then I had to meet with the sales director at the very end. They really did a good job to make you feel like you had to earn to get a spot, even though they were probably willing to take anyone that was excited about it. Right. So that was the journey. And, I'll let you kind of jump in here in a second. But I remember after I got offered the job and I called my parents, I was like, remember that internship I told you about? They're like, yeah, how did it go? I was like, well, I had the final interview because it lasted a couple of weeks. And they're like, great. I was like, they offered me the opportunity. They're like, awesome. They're like, what are you going to be doing? I was like, well, I'm going to have to go sell educational books door to door in a different state. My dad's like, you're what? They're like, you're totally not doing that. Obviously, I ended up doing it, but it's just a crazy, turn of events. And, that was kind of the beginning of kind of how I got into that situation.
Chad, were you just good at sales as a kid too? I know in your book, you talk about being the chatterbox, right?
Yeah.
Was that your unique ability always, or is that something that you feel like you learned from being a book salesman?
So I think I learned it. Okay. Now, when I say I was a chatty kid or a chatterbox was my nickname from that perspective, I always wanted to play and talk to people. And my parents had friends over. I was that kid that was just very involved. I wasn't one to just go read a book and do my own thing for hours on end. Right. But, from a standpoint, sales is I think people often forget that sales, yes, there's an element of skill and natural ability, and you got to be able to talk to people and be confident doing that. But to be good at sales, you have to learn the skill set of resilience. And that's really what I learned going door to door. Okay. Because every person that goes through training with them, by the way, they send you to an entire week in Nashville and they train you up before you even go go knock on a door. And you're practicing all your presentations, all your approaches on what you would say to a door and all these different things. So you know exactly what to do to be successful. But the people that make it versus the people that don't are the people that don't quit, right? And that was really what I learned is how do I overcome rejection? How do I keep going even when it doesn't feel like things are going well? How do I still smile after 10, 15 people told me they're not interested or get off my property or whatever? And just like, again, get knocked down 10, get up 11, right? That was really the skill set that I think I learned to master. And if I never would have mastered that, I don't think I would have gotten anywhere in sales from that standpoint.
I have a buddy that did the door-to-door books back 50 years ago. And he has a story one time he knocked on the door and the lady told him to get away. So he went to the back door and he knocked on it. And she said, "What are you doing?" He said, "There's a really mean lady at the front, but I'm trying to sell some books."
Oh my gosh.
And
Wow.
he sold her, but it was resilience, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't going to take no. He was going to sell the book.
Yeah. And she probably laughed about it, and just was like, okay, I'll give you a minute. Why not?
Exactly.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. That's a new one. I haven't heard that one. So many good book stories. And man, when you connect with someone that did the door-to-door thing, obviously there's so much stuff. And I mean, I could say the stories where it's like, man, I had moments where like I thought about quitting and then I kept going. And that's what people usually take away. And just for the record, if any of you guys are business owners, listen to this and you're looking for great salespeople, you would be silly not to want to recruit and talk to someone that did that internship. Especially they did it for 2 summers at least. Just great people.
I'm curious. I know you've got a young, is it a daughter?
Yeah.
Young daughter. And maybe this is premature, but
I know what you're about to ask.
Do you think this is something you would encourage her to do?
It's a great question. It's funny. My wife never did anything like this. And she's not someone that would be like, oh my gosh, I'd be so excited about it. So she's like, I don't think I would ever let her do it. Right. And I told there's part of me that's like, oh, it really wasn't as bad as people make it out to believe. Sure. I think there's horror stories of thinking like door to door is this crazy thing. If my daughter, if I felt like she was someone that was sharp, wanted to become resilient, all those different things, from that standpoint, and I felt like she was ready for it, then I think I would be excited about it. But I would say there's different layers of maturity at different ages, especially for, obviously women, we could say they're a little bit more of an aspect. You kind of want to be more protective of them, that thing. But I'm just a huge believer that I learned so much. I would never force her to do it. I wouldn't say, you got to go door to door and do this. But if there was an interest there, I think I would be okay with it. And I'd have to probably sell my wife on hey, this is going to be worth it. Yeah.
Because I think it's a big part of your story.
Sure.
Do you think there's a way to teach that resilience? Is there another way to do it? Would you be who you are today without that?
Man, what a great question. Would I be who I am today without that? I honestly, and it's so funny. My parents have always been told me, they gave me that advice, you can do anything you set your mind to, right? I think there's a world where I probably would have had just the normal, hey, you got the decent job, you made it in corporate and, you had a respectable career. That probably would have been my life if I never did something like that. Okay. And there might have been a point when I turned 40 that I would have realized I don't care what people think about me because I'm going to die anyways. I think a lot of people there's different stages as you get older. You start to realize that. But I had that realization at 21. Okay. And so I think really the difference was for me, I probably could have learned the resilience, but I think it would have came later in life. But I think I really fast tracked it because I did it in such a young age. And I also had to do something that was very, very hard that I didn't even believe that I could do. And I had great mentors that were telling me you are capable, you can do this, push through. And it was very hard. There were times I would call my mom and be like, I don't know why I'm out here. I'm knocking on doors at 8:00 at night. People are having dinner. I was in a totally different state. Right. And, my mom was just like, you can keep going, just keep knocking. Aww. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? And they're just like, oh, we're just at the lake right now in the pontoon. And I was just like, oh, that's where I would just love to be right now. But again, it was the thing that I think builds resilience is when you do something and you accomplish something that you didn't even believe was possible.
Wow.
And you actually make it come to life, right?
That's good. I think it's good too, Chad, you brought up that you weren't necessarily that way naturally, but it was taught. Have you read the book Pitch Anything by Orrin Clef?
I've heard of it, but I have not. No.
He makes a strong point for that in that book. There's some people that are more natural salesy.
Sure.
But someone tries to recruit him and he's like, listen, I can teach you this, but you can't have me. He's like, I put in 10,000 hours to get to this. I think it's good you bring that up because I think we often fail to realize that we can be resilient in almost anything if we consistently follow the right steps. You had the mentors, you had the program, you didn't quit at 7:00 at night, you didn't quit halfway through the summer, you stayed committed, you stayed consistent, and you did it.
Kept going. And I mean, after my second summer and my third summer, I made a real commitment, I'm going to go all in. Right. But the first summer, that was when you figured out who you were. Right. And it almost, I always tell people it's like a sales boot camp. It's just like, and we call the people that quit early champions. Like, you weren't there by week 4. Like, you just weren't coming back. Like, people would just drive home. They wouldn't even tell because they're just ashamed to quit. Like, all the things.
What is the, I'm sure they would know. What's the dropout rate on that? They would know, right? They would expect X amount of kids to quit the first month. And
yeah, there's a world where it's like, cool, you bring out 10, expect maybe 6 to stick, right? So it's like 60% of people would stay. And then there's a world where it's like the ones that stay, there's even math of the average number of sales that they would make. Okay. The ones that did stick, right? And then there's also math if somebody came back for a second year, they'd sell more, third year, so on. So obviously it was all science. That company, just so you guys know, it's like the oldest direct selling company in America. They have over 100,000 alumni. They started selling Bibles door to door, right? So they had all this stuff to a science, like tremendous door-to-door training. I mean, they had it figured out from the moment when you knock on a door, what you do, you need to step back from the door and you just stand sideways, like let people see your profile, just wave randomly. So when they're looking out the window, they see a guy out there standing sideways waving, so they're more likely to open it. And it's so funny because since I was in door to door, I get these people all the time. And just some people knock on my door and they're standing right at the door. It's like, I don't want to open it. Cause I'm just like, dude, I don't even know who you are. Like, what are you doing standing literally less than a foot away from my door? Like, they had everything figured out, right?
Wow.
And so it's like, you just had to be coachable. And it even to the point where like when you ask someone to come inside their house, they would teach you just to bend over, grab your book bag. That was like the thing you'd carry with all the samples, and just stand there and just wipe your feet and just keep doing it until someone says yes, no, or then stand up and say, oh, I guess you haven't heard about me yet. Like you said, they wanted you to be very good at being assumptive. And that's like another thing you learn. It was pretty crazy. But yeah, that just goes to show like systems and processes and all the different things that make a big difference in any organization.
Well, and it's really your book is a how-to map on how to sell high tickets, right? It's very similar. Follow these steps and you'll get good. And this is how you get a job. And this is how you make a lot of money. Outside of resilience, is there anything that you feel like there's a key lesson you learned from books that you carry with you still today?
Yeah, there is. There's something I always think about. I do talk about this in my book. And, there's obviously the resilience of working hard. And I think when people think of resilience, it's like definitely not giving up. But, effort is a huge thing and everybody can control effort. The second thing that I learned is effort is, don't get me wrong, it's a big piece of the puzzle, but I think an even bigger piece of the puzzle, and it doesn't have to be in sales, it can be really in anything in life, is the attitude, the consistency of an attitude that you have when things are not going your way. Okay. Of having a good attitude. Right. And that's something that I'm always reminding myself about, especially in sales, right? Nobody wants to talk to a salesman that looks grumpy, looks upset, isn't having fun. Everyone wants to talk to someone that has positive energy, that feels that's likable. Right. But what's very difficult is like, how do I control my attitude amidst all the chaos that's happening? Okay. And it's how do you respond to the uncontrollable things that are thrown your way that really is going to set you apart in life, in business? Because at the end of the day, too many people in life are so focused on things they can't control, and that stresses them out. Where it's like, at the end of the day, if something happens I literally had no control over, I don't stress about it. Can control two things. That's my effort, which is, obviously the resilience of working, but the resilience having a great mindset. Those are the two things that I would say have been extremely pivotal in just my business life, personal life, marriage, etc.
That's good. I bet we make a short out of that, honestly. Friggin' attitude. Like, show up. That's how you kill complacency, right?
Yeah.
Make it happen. You keep going. That's resilience. Yeah, that's good.
And you got to be your own coach. I think this is really important. You want to be someone that's resilient and kills complacency when it's not going well and there's no one there to say, you can do it, Chad. You can do it, Marty. It's like, you got to be telling yourself, I can do this. I have the ability to be successful. I'm working hard all day. Success is me just doing my best all day long, all day strong. Like, those were literally, that was self-talk I used to say to myself when I went door to door, repeating over and over and over just to ignore all the noise, right? There's no one with me. I was the only person knocking on doors, right? That's another piece of it.
Okay, so you did the books, and then did you get a job with Chandler right away then?
Great question. No, I didn't. I actually was like, I got into this for insurance thing, right? So I did insurance.
Okay, that's right.
I sold supplemental. And I actually started my own agency. I did that for 5 years. And I was making good money. Okay. 6 figures, whatever. I wasn't super passionate about it. And I was also working 60 hours a week. And it was more of like a business to business sales job. And, as I was getting kind of in my mid 20s, I'm like, is this really what I want to do forever? Because insurance is a very much like you add dirt to the pile. It eventually gets bigger and bigger. And then you get residuals. And yes, you can make great money, but it's a little bit of a long game. And I was like, I don't know if this really want to do, right? And so I got to this place where I was like, I think I want to start my own business in online space. And I knew I didn't know a lot. And there's two options I had. I could probably go pay someone $40,000 to teach me how to do it. or I could go work for someone that's already doing it successfully. And I got connected to Chandler Bull and this company called Self Publishing School at the time. Okay. And they had 7 employees and they were looking for a sales rep. And I had the experience, and Chandler and I connected, and it was like a 3-interview process. The rest is history. And I told them on that interview, I said, hey, you're going to get me for about 5 years, and I'm going to learn how to start my own thing. Like, I want to come work for you and help you grow this thing. But most importantly, like, I want to learn how to do something like this myself. End up getting me for 7. So he won, and on the other side of it. But then I was able to start my own thing, which is what I do now full time. But that's how I got connected to Chandler and self-publishing school.
That's kind of nice when an employee's up front with you like that. Like, I'm going to give you myself, but peace out at some point. I'm going to be taking notes.
Yeah. I was like, hey, I'm committed to this. Like, I was like, I'm probably going to be, I was pretty confident in my ability of sales at that point. Like, I was like, I know I can do well, but it's like, this is my end game. I don't know. My goal is like, hey, you'll probably get me for 5 years. After that, I'm probably going to either figure something else out. But, I'm still very involved with those guys. Chandler's a great friend of mine. And if anyone's ever trying to write a book, I highly recommend selfpublishing.com. Great company to work with on that stuff. They helped me with my book. But most importantly, at the end of the day, it's like, I'm not one to burn bridges. And because you just never know what happens. Business can go in so many different directions.
Going back to the interview, it makes me think too, I would totally hire you because of that, because I would know you were growth minded.
Yeah.
And you weren't going to stay at my business forever. I think there's value in that. Not that everyone's going to say it, but it's good. We'll get into your book in a little bit, but I want to hear a little bit about, when did real estate come in? Because you and I have that in common as well. When did real estate come into the picture for you? Was that just something you always knew you would do, or?
I read a book that many of you probably have read, a very famous book called Rich Dad Poor Dad by Mr. Robert Kiyosaki. And he talked about this crazy concept called passive income and real estate investing. You got to invest in real estate. Well, I had no money and I couldn't afford to do anything. Another reason why I wanted to get into sales, right? What's crazy is, once I started like really feeling like I had the time to figure it out, I bought my first rental property in 2018, maybe early 2019. Yeah, end of 2018. Luckily before the whole COVID boom. So that's a huge win. But that's when I got started. And I got started because of Brandon Turner. And I read his book, the book on real estate investing. And I watched the webinars with Bigger Pockets when he was a host there. And I'd listen to those things all the time in my workouts. I'm like, he'd always be like, the first one's the hardest. The first one's the hardest. And I remember walking through my first property. It was just a single family home. It was like 115,000. I knew the numbers made sense because I did the calculations. Like, I wanted to make sure I was making a good investment. But I remember like walking through, like really being like, oh, there's a little crack in the foundation. You don't really think it was just like things that didn't actually even matter and like thought they did. And I remember just like, fake it till you make it. And I remember my wife was like looking through. I was like, are we going to do this? Are we going to get our first property? And obviously we did, and it's been great ever since. But we've continued to stack on that. And I think you and I recently spoke about a big project that we have going on, which we officially did get that under contract. So that's exciting, but a lot of lessons to be learned. And we're getting a lot of things going with that one. So that's when it first started. And I'm so thankful that I got into real estate investing because it is a great thing, right?
I wanted to hear your take on it because you specifically said you didn't want to do insurance because it was a long game, but in real estate, it's a long game.
It is.
So what's the difference? Was it just the way Robert Kiyosaki laid it out?
I think there's a world where it's like you think about investment, right? And I was also kind of following some Grant Cardone stuff where he talked about if I could go back to when I was 30 or 28 making money in car sales, like I just buy houses. He's like, why wouldn't you? He's like, and then you see the whole thing about like everything's tripling in value. Like, and your parents always tell you like, I remember when houses were 10, 15 grand and I bought a car for 5,000. Now it's like, whatever, it's because of inflation. That part is where it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Right. That was one thing right there that Grant Cardone really got in my brain where he's like, dude, he's like real stuff. He's like, I'm not saying 401ks are terrible, but he's like, put in real stuff you can leverage, like you just mentioned. But in regards to the insurance thing, insurance is definitely a long game. But, I was also selling a product that I wasn't crazy about. It was a refundable cancer insurance product, whatever. But I think more of just in the element of the passive lifestyle that you can build with real estate. And again, leverage, having a portfolio, that's money sitting. I can always sell it, flip it, whatever. Right. It just felt more fun. I don't know. I've always been like a work with my hands type of guy too. Right. I can do 90% of most stuff. Right. Now I'm at a state where I got to have somebody else do it, but I enjoy that piece.
What you just said is really key. And you bring it up in your book that with insurance, you didn't believe in it. And you talk in your book about you need to know you're trying to sell, the product. And Grant Cardone would talk a lot about that too. And I mean, Grant would try to upsell it because he's attached.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
But know your product. And if you can't get behind your product, then you can't sell it because That's good you recognize that early about yourself.
Yeah. And it wasn't so much where I didn't believe in the product. First of all, I'll say that. But I think it was more of is this the thing that I really feel like my full conviction is in, where I'm all in and this is what I want to do for the next 30 years, right? And I think that was the disconnect, because I sold pretty well. Product was good, right? But when I really thought about where I wanted to be, like, it wasn't aligning with my overall goal of like, I want to run my own real business, not just be, it's like when you're in insurance, it's like you are just really a salesperson running a sales organization and growing it. I mean, there's a level of ownership, but it wasn't like my real business.
Sure.
Right. That's what I always dreamed about. Like, how do I start my own thing? Right.
Okay. So you do door to door. This is what I know about you. You've written a book, you've got some real estate, you own a business. So my question is, how do you personally evaluate risk? Like, how do you know to say yes to things when most other people would say no? How do you do that, Chad?
Man, I keep saying great question, and I swear it's not a filler, but these are very thoughtful questions, and I appreciate you asking that. And as you asked that, I'm like, man, is there a way? Now, first of all, if I'm doing something I've never done before, I have no knowledge in, okay? I'm someone that will go seek out some sort of a mentor that has done something that I've done or that I'm trying to do. Okay, my grandpa gave me this advice a long time ago. He said, Chad, if you ever want to learn how to do something, make sure that the person that is teaching you how to do it has actually done what you're trying to do. And I said, wow, grandpa, that's great advice. And like, at the end of the day, that is something that I've lived by for a very, very, very long time. When I was in college, I remember being in business classes, and there were some professors that were teaching business. And guess what? They never ran a business. And so I learned in that class, but I didn't like take it to heart. And I didn't like go out of my way to ask them all these crazy questions. Okay. Because they were just there to do the job. But that's number one. I want to say I always seek out mentors. I think that's really, really important, right? And find someone that you feel like you connect with and you can understand, right? Because everyone's going to connect with someone based on their personality type, whatever. That's a given. And then the second thing, I think this is more of an internal thing, and it could sound woo to people. I don't know. I think it's just a lot of awareness that I've kind of gained throughout the years. But I get like a feeling where, especially like starting my business, where it's like I get a real true belief feeling inside of me. If I'm going to go after something, it's like that feeling has to be there, especially if it's going to be something that's a big risk. Like leaving a job where you're making 300, 400K a year is a big step, right?
Yeah.
And to go all in on something that there is no guarantee. It's like there was a feeling that said, I can do this. I believe I can. Again, in the different scheme here, remember, I worked for a company that was pretty successful in the online space. I learned a lot, technically had a mentor throughout that 7-year span. I learned so much that I got to a place where I was like, I believe I could do something like this, right? Feeling was there, and that gave me more confidence. But in regards to real estate, you know, at the end of the day, I think feelings are great, but then I also think there's a world that you do need to bring some element of logic in, right? Yes. Especially in real estate, you need to understand what the difference is between a good deal and a bad deal. And you also have to ask yourself questions, right? You know this. You got to also ask yourself questions. Am I willing to take on a percentage of risk? Because everything has a risk to it.
Sure.
It's just what we're always trying to do is mitigate that to be low as possible, right? You don't want to go into something that's 99% risk. You want to go into something that's like 20% risk, right? And so how do you come to that conclusion? And whether that's feeling, whether that's logic, I think you should mix the both, kind of figure out through mentors, ask advice. That's how you learn.
That's good. Your first part there about mentors, I've actually done it. It's like getting health advice from a fat doctor. I'm like, dude, why should I listen to you? You're obviously not following it. So I've always thought about that, like fat doctors. So yeah, same thing. Business college, business class. He hasn't done it. The guy at college that can teach a business class that can say, I've done 10 businesses, 8 have failed. Here's what I learned. He's going to teach you something. So,
100%. I actually had one really good professor in college, and it was a sales class. And he actually was a sales rep for like 15 years in like business to business world, sold advertising. And it was like that guy brought his book that he used to do for like all his notes and people he talked to. And he was just so good because you're just like, this guy did the job.
He did. Right?
And you're just like, man, and he made tons of money doing it. And he was just so good.
To be honest, you know, I'm down at Austin at REI Summit, and I see your guys' book stand. I've thought about writing a book because he'd written a book, right? So I walk up and I'm like, hey, what are you guys selling? I knew what they were selling. I wanted to hear his pitch. When he says to me, we're selling, you know, we're helping people write books, and here's my book. I used to be a pastor, and then I wrote this book, and I'm doing all this stuff. Dude, that sold me because he's been through the program himself. He's not some sales guy at a conference. Same with you, Chad. You and I go have a little coaching session. Yeah. I wrote a book. It took me 55 days. And here's why this program's great. To your point, I totally agree. Find the guy who's done it.
100%. Yeah. It does make you feel more confident. We're like, especially when you start asking the real questions, it's like, oh, it's not like let me get back to that and ask somebody. And this is what coaches have told me. It's like, no, I remember the feeling of having to wake up and being like, I don't really feel like doing it, but I did it anyways. I spent the 15 minutes to get in a flow and then I was enjoying myself, right? Just part of the process, right? And I think it does help.
Yeah. So talk to us about your book, High Ticket Sales. Why did you write it? What inspired that? I think Chandler's probably a big part of that, right?
So the book on high ticket sales. Yeah. So I wrote this book. Chandler told me for a very long time, and it's really funny. It kind of connects to what you just said about like, you should, it gave me confidence of writing a book. He said, you should write a book because I'm guaranteed there's people that are probably asking you. And obviously I didn't want to lie. I was in the process. I always was. And honestly, I really struggled. The first book I wanted to write was not this book. It was a book it was just like a motivational book because Chandler's like, you should write a book. And I started trying to write this book on how to do it. But it wasn't like I was like, this is the book I have to write. It was just I'm doing this because I think this is what I should write a book on. Chandler thinks I should write a book, whatever. It didn't stick, right? I didn't really have the real drive to do it, right? There was no real raw reason to do it. And then I got to this place where I was just like, dude, why wouldn't I write a sales book? I was like, I've been so good at every job I've ever done and just make it specific to this industry. And so that's exactly what I did. And I remember being like on fire writing it because I didn't feel like I was trying to make stuff up. I really felt like I'm writing the stuff that I actually think is really good. And, for someone that's brand new, I'm not writing this for Grant Cardone that thinks he's awesome at sales. I'm writing this for the person that's never done sales or someone that's trying to get into this type of sales. They're going to think this thing is okay. And that helped me a ton. And again, it was just like, I got excited. I had the clear vision and I just went for it. And there were still days that I didn't really want to, but I think that element of stuff that I learned selling books door to door helped me stick to the process. But this book is designed to help someone in any type of sales job already, and they want to be more remote. Maybe they want more freedom, more of a better lifestyle to live. And they want to get into this industry that's like the e-learning industry. You sell courses, consulting, how to sell in that space. And then from that standpoint, it is a great tool to lead people into exploring my company, which is High Sales Academy as well. They read the book, they enjoy it, they like it, they opt into some of the free resources throughout the book.
I'm always curious, Chad, but someone that does high ticket sales. You guys are just off a commission off of that final numbers, how that works?
Majority of contractors or sales reps, they are 100% commission. There are some roles out there where they do offer a base plus commission. These are going to be some of the bigger companies that are really trying to retain talent, right? They're actually doing very, very well. Most, yes, from that standpoint. Now, I had the opportunity with Chandler where it's like, hey, I started out commission and then there was like, they wanted to keep me. And this was not like because I was going to leave, but it was like they had more things that changed as the business grew, right? There was 7 of us when I started.
Yeah.
Now they're at like 70 employees, right? They have 401k, they have all the things. And so it's like, how do you keep retaining employees and make things better than other places and all this stuff so people don't want to leave and they want to stay around for not 5 years, 7 years, right? Kind of like me. But again, it's a really cool career. And sometimes when you are 1099 or even if you're a commission, it does allow you to have more control over your schedule. And so I think some people do like that part of that space as well. Can take calls when you want.
I thought you had some really good hacks and information. Was it like 28% or something like that is what you try to close and you want to get to 40%?
I would say if you're decently good at sales, and again, there's so many metrics and there's probably someone on that's going to listen to this, oh man, I closed at 90%, whatever. It's so funny to me that people like play these like close rates and it's like, cool, how much was your program? Or how many people, like, how did they get on your calendar? And it's like, oh, we hosted a live event with 4 days with Tony Robbins. And then pretty much people were already signed up and you just have to collect a credit card, right? That's a very different lead than someone that you knocked on a door on that never knew you're there, or someone that maybe just watched an ad and booked an appointment. And now you're trying to sell them something. Like there's different levels of where close rate comes into play. But then last thing I'll mention too is that this thing called offer to close rate that a lot of sales reps try to flex, where they say, cool, I talked to 20 people, but I only decided to offer 10 of them. Okay. And because I only offered 10, I actually closed 9 out of the 10 or 6 out of the 10. So that means I have actually a 60% close rate. It's like, no, you talked to 20 people.
It's worth.
You only sold 6. So realistically, your close rate is actually, 30% or whatever. Yeah. So it's like, there's different metrics, but I believe sales. And if you remember my book, I talk a lot about baseball. I think baseball is a great example, right?
Oh, yes.
Great people in batting averages.
Yeah.
They're batting 200. If they get to 300, we're like, whoa, this guy is amazing. They get to 400. We're like, holy smokes, who is this guy? He must be the God's gift to batting, whatever. And so sales can be the same way. When you get really, really good, right? You start closing at above 30% consistently, like you're going to make good money. But the part that's difficult is you got to go through a lot of crap to get to the 3 out of 10 that buy. And sometimes it's you get 3 in a row. Sometimes it takes 10 people in a row that say no, and then you get the 3 in the row, or it takes 7 people no, and then 1 buys, and then 7 more say no. And then it just averages out to 30. Right? It's so unpredictable, but that's why you have to keep your head so sharp, and you got to still work hard, and you still got to show up, and you still got to be willing to put in the work and have a good attitude, even when things aren't going well.
Yeah.
Anything you take away from this podcast? How do you stay in a good mood when everything on the outside says that you should be in a bad mood? That's a real skill set right there.
Yeah. I think that's great. My wife has often talked about this with grades, that we put way too much emphasis on getting an 80 or a 90%. But she says, if you can retain 50% of what you were taught, like that should be good. You know, if it was comparable to baseball or sales, like you can close, you can get that 50 on that algebra test. Like,
I know. And the crazy part is, man, that's a whole other conversation, but I have not used algebra ever in my life.
Especially not now with ChatGPT.
Heck no, man. That's a whole other world, right? Jeez. Can you imagine being in school right now and having access to those types of tools? Holy smokes. Be wild.
What's one message you hope readers will get from your book?
I think the biggest thing is just a realization that you can do whatever you set your mind to. I think that's at the end of the day, right? But just take my story a little bit where it's like, hey, where you're at is not where you have to be forever. You can always make a pivot. You can always find something new, okay? And great income in high ticket sales, okay? Allowed me to do so much stuff. I was never making that income when I did insurance. I was never making that income when I was doing door to door, right? And I think sometimes we get so caught up because we've been in the same place for too long that we just think this is how it must be. This is what it's always like. But it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how young you are. Like, you can make a change very quickly, but you just got to be willing to make that change, right? And kill complacency, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day. That's probably the biggest thing that I'd like people to take away from my book is just like, I have to be willing to do something different. Nothing's going to change unless you change. It doesn't have to be sales. It could be in anything at the end of the day.
Chad, did the book come first or your business that you started?
So the book actually came first.
Okay.
Now I had the intention of having a business on the back end, but the goal of the book was to, one, credibility, but also provide a lot of value. I get a lot of messages on social media tags on the book that say like, this is so helpful. Definitely value. And then it was also going to be like, cool, with the intention of, hey, if I have a business on the back end, what would that look like? How could this fit in? But the biggest thing was like using it as a resource.
That's good. You seem to be a high performance guy. What are some systems or disciplines that help you show up consistently, Chad?
Self-talk, huge. It sounds so weird and just like people are like, talk to yourself. What? There's a great book by a guy named Shad, S-H-A-D, Helmstetter. It's called What You Say When You Talk to Yourself. Highly recommend it. It's just a great book about you and obviously the conversations you're always having with you at the end of the day. That's probably like a little bit of a secret sauce because I'm constantly coaching myself up, right? In business, there's so many fires that are always burning and there's so many things I can focus on. There's, and so it's like, I'm always just telling myself, we're going to figure this out, right? And you're going to figure it out. It always happens. Like, just like there's always got to be this mindset of possibility that I want to be in. So having great self-talk, because man, I'm telling you, it's like what you're saying in here definitely is going to reflect out there, right? If you have a negative inside, you're going to project negativity, right? So that's probably the biggest tip for anyone that's really trying to become more resilient. It's like, start there. Be aware though of what you're doing. I think that's another piece.
Sure. Give me someone in your program. What is like your ideal mindset that you see they have or that they need to shift to in order to thrive and become a high ticket sales guy that really does well?
So it's really one of the biggest things we've been already talking about in this podcast. It is the mindset. I believe sales is 80% mindset, 20% skill set. And the reason why I say that is there's a lot of people that have tried sales, a lot of people, and they try it in the first 2 weeks, they make a sale because their sales manager says, hey, here's the script, just go have fun. Don't worry about closing the deal. And they go out and they're in a good mood and they realize they're new. If people buy, who cares? So what? They make sales and then they're doing well. And then all of a sudden month 2 or month 3 rolls around and things don't feel like they're going good and their mindset gets bad. And they start to believe that, oh man, no one's buying right now. I must not be good at this. And they get so impatient. And you just got to trust the process at the end of the day. And you got to put pressure on the system. The system is doing the work, okay? Because you can't have a result unless you do the work, right? So it's about trusting the process. It's about realizing that, again, it comes back to the mindset piece. People in my program, and you guys, if anyone's listening that's in my program, you got to get over the fact that when you're great at sales, not everybody buys from you. I think that's a weird misconception. How do I keep getting up and having a good attitude every single day and showing up consistently? And that's the difference maker. taker, and those are the people that really become successful is they don't think it's like, Chad, it's an objection that has this perfect response. They realize it's an attitude and it's a state that they're consistently in that separates them to become consistent, right?
That is so powerful. Do you guys coach that specifically? I would think like that could be its own course, like the mindset part, the resilience, the self-talk.
So we don't have something specific where it's like super entrenched on that topic. We do train on that, right? And we do talk about that a lot in our group coaching calls and, all that kind of stuff. And like every time on group coach calls, we're talking about mindset because like that's the thing that I'm always trying to ingrain in people, at the end of the day. But I definitely think there is a world where we're probably going to eventually develop something that is like the sales superhuman. I don't know, right? Something like that. It'll be a better name.
That's cool. How do you personally stay intentional? We talked about self-talk. Is that it? Do you have habits you do?
So if we're saying intentional with my thoughts, with everything, I think it's a lot of it is attitude, right? It's awareness. I think intentionality comes from awareness, in my opinion. Too many people, they act too much on feeling, right? And they're not aware how they're responding to stuff that's happening to them. Just being aware of how am I responding? How is this thing happening? Again, going back to things that I can control and not control. Okay. Like those are the pieces that allow me to, I think, stay the most focused on what I need to get done. Right. And again, do it at a high level. When people are emotional and they always say like, oh, I just got emotional in that moment. And that's why I said what I said. I didn't mean to say that. Right. But man, think of how powerful it is if you're aware that your emotions or you're getting a feeling inside of you where it's like, I can tell that something's struck a chord. And if you can control not saying the thing that you really want to say, that you really probably don't mean, but you're just saying it because you're feeling emotional, like, man, oh man, that kind of control over yourself is super powerful. And I'm still working on it every day. I'm not perfect.
There'd be a lot less divorces if people did that.
Yeah, for sure. Awareness is huge. Awareness of how you're feeling state and just becoming more familiar with you. People don't focus on themselves.
How do you train that, Chad? How do you train me to focus on my emotions and be aware so that I don't say something I'm going to regret? Or train me to have that proper attitude when everything is going bad and I'm changing a flat tire into rain? How do you do that?
It's like a feeling that you get in your body. Something tenses up. That's like the first level of awareness that people aren't aware of. And some people, it's like they feel it in their chest. Some people might like feel like tightness in their back, right? And it's so interesting because he goes through these exercises where he'll ask a lot of questions and like get you to this place where you're like thinking about specific. And then all of a sudden, like he start asking questions of like, hey, do you feel any tension anywhere in your body? Right. And that's usually the interesting part that you start to realize, like for me, I know that when I get in a state of emotion is taking over a little bit, I get this tension like in almost the like kind of like right in my chest area. And I can like feel it. And now that I'm aware of it, it's like, cool, I'm starting to feel that feeling. I know that it's coming kind of thing. And I think that is a piece that a lot of people just, again, they're not aware of the physical elements of what's actually happening to them. But he has this fun exercise that he takes people through to like figure what that is. And that's been really, really helpful for me. I still miss it every now and then. It's one of those things where you just get better at it every day. You get more aware. And I think I've definitely saved a lot of arguments or things that you could have said to an employee that you didn't really mean in the moment or, those types of things, just because I was able to slow down. I saw it coming before it happened, right?
What's something you're doing right now that your future self will thank you for?
So without going too much into detail, it's this big project. That's definitely a long game. It's not something that I'm going to benefit from in the next 5 years. It'll probably be a 10-year thing. I'm going to see the real benefits from it. But it's a real estate investment property. That's a big deal. It's something I've never done before. Luckily, I got partners that have done this stuff. I think that's important. So I got the right team. But at the end of the day, I'm super proud of myself because I'm willing to go outside my comfort zone to go to the next level. I see myself being very proud of that situation. And then the second thing, this is just more on a personal note, just making sure like running a business is hard. And it's so easy to choose business over anything. And just like making sure I'm putting the time aside to where it's like when my daughter's home, spending time with my daughter and just trying to make sure I'm spending time with my family, I think I'm going to thank myself for, because I'd never wanted to be the dad that we saw in the sitcoms. That always never on the phone and kids were always sad.
That's good. That's good. If you could go back and tell your younger self something, what would it be? And I want you to think about that, but I also want to maybe change that a little bit. If you were to teach a class for 1 hour, what would you speak to them about and why?
It's not the message of like, you can do anything you set your mind to, because I don't think kids understand that at that age yet. Like some might, right? They might like hold it, whatever. It's going to be not worrying about what other people think about you. I think I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about that. Now,
that's good.
Even before social media was a thing, people still overthought, man, what are they going to think if I do this? What's my mom going to say? What's my dad going to say? What's this? What's that? What's that? What's that? Like, you are living your own life. You are on your own journey, and it only needs to make sense to you at the end of the day, right? I would want to have a talk about something like that, just help people think. It doesn't mean they're going to change in that moment, but to be aware of how dumb it is, right? Because sometimes we don't learn that stuff until we turn 35, 40 years old, a lot of people. And I'm lucky I learned it going door to door. That's how I really just had to get over it.
Sure.
They taught us to throw our cool card on the ground and stomp on it, right? It's like, you're not cool, you're knocking on doors. And why did I sign up to do this thing if I'm not cool, right? But anyways, that would be the lesson. That would be like the talk. You can't live a happy life if you just care too much about what other people think.
That's good. What's a favorite book or quote that has helped you in your life?
Favorite quote? I don't know who quoted this, but pretty basic quote. It's just, you can't adjust the wind, but you can adjust your sails. That is directly correlated to something I said earlier, which is like, you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond to the uncontrollable things that are thrown your way. And that is something that I always think about, where it's like, okay, what are the things I can control? That's something that stuck with me for a long time. And a book that, again, changed my life, Rich Dad Poor Dad's one. And from a sales perspective, to get into the understanding of mindset, it would be Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. It's a good read. It's just fun. It's enjoyable. It's actually, because it's a parable, right? A little story to it. It's not just a straight self-help, 1, 2, 3, do that.
If you ever leaned in and had a course on mindset, your motto should be that quote, but you should change sales to sales.
I know, right? There we go, right? Yeah.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, there we go. Pun. I like it.
Go adjust your sales. You could have it above the door into the room to get taught. I don't know.
Man, that's good. Yeah.
Final message. What does Chad want the world to know? Publicize a message. What do you want them to hear?
Things happen twice in your life. They happen once in your mind, and then they happen once in reality. Okay. Too many people, they don't believe they can do it. And of course, you're not going to accomplish it. But what's crazy is the ones that are crazy enough to think that they can, they actually do. Okay. And so the belief is so powerful. And I know some of you guys are like, Chad, I don't have the skills. I don't have the skills. It's not the fact that you need the skills to do it. It's the belief that keeps you pushing to learn the skill to actually be successful.
Wow.
Right? And that's the part that I think a lot of people forget about what that actually means to get to a place that you've never been. It's the belief to keep pushing.
That's so powerful.
To learn all those things.
Powerful. I started running long distance a couple years ago. And that is what happens with that, is you follow this program, and then race day comes. And because you followed the program, suddenly you're running 20 miles, 30 miles, 40 miles, 50 miles, whatever it is. Your capability rises because you showed up and you believe you could do it. But the people that quit are the ones that think, this is too hard, I can't do it. Chad, how do people find, follow, and learn more about you?
Yeah, so you can go to highticketsalesacademy.com if you want to check out the company website, what we do. We don't just partner with helping people get and do high ticket sales, but we also help businesses find great sales talent as well. And then you can obviously read my book, the book on high ticket sales. It's on Amazon, audiobook, all that stuff. Connect with me on Instagram, LinkedIn. Instagram handle is just my first and last name, Chad Aleo. And of course, there's a YouTube channel, there's a TikTok for High Ticket Sales Academy, all the different things. Feel free to connect, and we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Chad.
Yeah, thank you, Marty. It's been a great episode. I'm glad to be on it.
Just wanted to thank you guys for listening to the end. In closing, I just wanted to add that if this message resonates with you, if it aligns with your values, and something in it today triggered something, then you can also look me up on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. We are really trying to help people live more intentional lives, to kill the complacency with which they have subscribed to. I know there's many ways which I get sucked in all the time. So if this is beneficial, follow me there.